At the beginning of the movie, a scared businessman is secretly recorded as he talks about a dangerous group after a meeting. On his way to his car, a Jeep suddenly crashes into him. He tries to fight back, but the Jeep pushes his car off the edge of the parking structure. The story then follows Will Gerard, an English teacher, and his wife Laura, a musician. They are celebrating their wedding anniversary while watching the news about the businessman's death. Even though the city is falling into chaos, they still enjoy their time together. Will and Laura went dancing with Jimmy, the principal of Will's school, and his wife. That night, after being intimate, Will gave Laura a necklace to show his love. The next day, after work, Will and Jimmy played their usual chess game, both concentrating deeply. Meanwhile, Laura finished her orchestra rehearsal. As she walked to her car, a man suddenly appeared with a gun and dragged her away. The man forced Laura into the back seat. She tried to fight, but he attacked her violently. Meanwhile, Will and Jimmy said goodnight to each other. Soon after, Will got an alert on his phone and rushed to a nearby hospital. There, he was shocked to see Laura in a room, beaten, bruised, and barely conscious. Outside her room, Jimmy and another friend, Trudy, arrived to help. Jimmy was sure the police would catch the attacker and offered to take calls for Will if he needed support. Will was sitting alone in the waiting room when a man in a suit approached him and offered his condolences for his wife. The man introduced himself as Simon and said he had gone through a similar experience a few years ago. Simon told Will that he knew the man who attacked Laura, a repeat offender named Haji. Surprisingly, Simon offered to deal with Haji for Will, so there would be no long trial and Laura wouldn't have to face more trauma. He said he worked for an organization that punishes criminals who escape justice and that they were interested in Will's case. In return, they might ask Will for a small favor later. Will hesitated at first, not wanting to get involved, but the idea of avenging Laura convinced him. He finally agreed to the plan. He was told to buy 2 chocolate bars from a vending machine as a signal that he accepted while being watched by unseen people. That night, Haji returned to his apartment, feeling proud of the necklace he had taken from Laura. Suddenly, a man wearing gloves appeared, frightening him. The intruder aimed a gun at Haji, and although Haji tried to fight, he was killed. The next day, a man claiming to be an insurance agent delivered a package to Will. Inside, there was a photo of Haji and Laura's necklace. He told Laura, who was still recovering, that her attacker was dead. Laura cried with relief. Soon after, they went back home. Laura's face was still swollen from the attack and Will promised to stay by her side. Laura apologized and said she now wanted new locks and window bars. 6 months later, they were still trying to move on. Laura wanted to buy a gun, but Will refused to keep one in the house. Laura still went to the local shooting range to learn how to use a gun and bought a can of pepper spray. One evening, while they were at a bar, Will got a call from Simon, who wanted to meet. Simon told him to go to a store, buy a pack of gum, and leave through the back door. Outside, Will saw Simon waiting in his car. After a moment of hesitation, Will got in. Simon gave him an envelope and told him to drop it in a mailbox by the lake at exactly 4:15 the next day. The following day, Will went to the zoo, but before he could mail the envelope, he got a call telling him to open it. Inside the envelope was a photo of a man with his family and a phone number. Simon told Will to watch the man, use the code phrase "the hungry rabbit jumps" as a warning, and then kidnap his wife and children. Will started following them at the zoo, but couldn't find the man. The next day, in his classroom, Will was shocked to see the phone number written on his board. Angry, he called Simon, only to realize Simon was waiting outside the school. Furious that Simon had invaded his privacy, Will refused to continue the deal. But Simon ignored Will and reminded him about their deal. Later, Will accidentally bumped into a man who gave him an envelope before disappearing. Inside were documents claiming that Will's target was a convicted criminal. Will went home, but soon got another call from Simon, telling him to kill the target by pushing him off a bridge on his usual route. Will tried to argue, but Simon ignored him and hung up. The next morning, Laura said she felt something was wrong and blamed herself, but Will reassured her that it wasn't her fault. Before going to work, Will found that his car tire had been slashed, so he had to follow Simon's instructions and take the bus. When the bus reached the overpass, Will didn't get off and went to work instead. After class, Simon confronted him and reminded him of their deal. Will refused, saying he was not a killer, and told Simon to leave him alone. That evening, Will and Laura went out for dinner, but Simon suddenly appeared, pretending to be an old colleague of Will's. He sat at their table, but Will told him to leave. That's when Will realized how serious the trouble really was. The next morning, Will went to the overpass and saw his target getting off another bus. He waited until the man came close and tried to talk to him, but the man, suspecting an attack, fought back. During the struggle, the man fell over the edge and died. Panicked, Will ran away and jumped on the next bus. Meanwhile, Laura was checking Will's car and found her necklace in the glove compartment. Soon after, Will got a call from Simon, who thanked him for finishing the job and said he was now free from their deal. Will saw two students fighting and hit one of them, which got the student suspended for 3 weeks. When he got home, Laura asked him about the necklace, but Will refused to explain. Laura left for her rehearsal. Soon after, there was a knock at the door, and 2 detectives came to arrest Will for murder. He was taken in for questioning and denied killing anyone. The police then showed him surveillance footage from the overpass, which showed Will and the victim, Alan, walking there, but the actual fight wasn't captured because the camera in that area had been turned off. The police also showed Will a video from his own phone, which caught him following Alan at the zoo. Alan's family revealed that he was actually an investigative journalist. With no other options, Will asked for a lawyer, but the lieutenant refused because he hadn't been officially charged. Instead, the lieutenant asked him strange, simple questions until Will mentioned the phrase "the hungry rabbit." After that, the lieutenant let him go and warned him to leave the city before Simon came to kill him. After rehearsal, Laura tried to call Will, but the police answered his phone. Will went to a payphone and left a message with Trudy for Laura, saying he would try to meet her after rehearsal the next day. He then visited his old high school, where he learned more about Alan and saw his memorial. The next day, Will sneaked into Laura's rehearsal space and got her attention. He explained everything that was happening and Laura understood. She gave him money and the gun she had bought. One man chased Will while another jumped into Simon's car. Will ran onto the highway and climbed over the edge just before Simon and his men could catch him. He fell onto the highway, dropping his phone. One of the men tried to reach him, but was hit by a car and dragged several feet. Meanwhile, Laura was leaving the building when a detective appeared, saying he had evidence that could prove her innocence. She got into the car but soon realized the men were not real police officers. When the car stopped, Laura sprayed the 2 men with pepper spray and escaped. She then broke into Alan's workplace, found his desk, and took some documents before being caught. On the street, Will saw a police car and quickly slipped into a nearby hotel. There, he stole a jacket and a parking ticket, which he used to take a car and drive into an alley. He went through Alan's documents and found receipts from a gas station Alan often visited. Will drove to the station and learned from the attendant that Alan had a nearby storage unit. He paid for directions and forced his way inside. There, he found a boat and began searching around it. The officers were unharmed and Will kept driving. He reached an alley, opened a lockbox, and found a DVD. The disc showed Alan interviewing the man from the beginning of the film about the vigilante organization. Will also found photos of Simon meeting with his friend Jimmy. He hurried to Jimmy's house and barged in with a gun. Jimmy admitted that he had joined the group after his brother was killed and revealed that he was the one who asked the lieutenant to release Will. Will held a gun to Jimmy's head and made him reveal Simon's real name. He then left, not knowing he was being followed. A man approached him with a gun, calling him a wanted criminal, but Will quickly overpowered him. The man panicked and let Will go. Simon, whose real name is Eugene Cook and who is a businessman, sent Will a video interview along with recordings from the overpass showing that he didn't kill Alan. Simon agreed to meet Will for an exchange at the Superdome during a monster truck show. Meanwhile, Jimmy went to Trudy, pretending to help her, to find out where Laura was. This led him to Laura, but someone else suddenly broke into the room. At the monster truck show, Simon got a call from Will with instructions on where to meet. The two finally met face to face, but then Simon showed Will a photo of Laura with her mouth taped shut and forced him to follow. They went into an abandoned mall, where Will saw Laura being held by Jimmy and several other men. Simon took the tape off Will and ordered his men to kill both him and Laura. When someone called Simon a psychopath, he became furious.
What the fuck, Jimmy? Innocent people!
Moments later, the lieutenant arrived and claimed that Jimmy and Simon had killed each other, insisting that Will and Laura were never there. He asked Will to join his organization, but Will refused. Will and Laura left together, and his name was cleared after the footage of his fight with Alan was made public. Later, Will went to Alan's old workplace and gave a disc to another reporter. When the man took the disc, he simply said, "The Hungry Rabbit," and walked away.